Lights up bright, dope, Campbell Stadium is alive. Seminoles rise and fight to survive. Helmet gleam under that blazing sun. Florida State where champions run. Seminole sideline 365. Feel the roar, we're coming alive. Garnet and gold in the battle we thrive. This is our house where legends arrive. Turf torn up under Seminole feet. The war chant pounds to the heart's own beat. Chop through the noise like a storm in the sky. 2025, we reach for the high. Seminole sideline 365.
Welcome back to Seminole Sideline 365. I am KB. With me is the old man, and we have a show tonight talking about the upcoming game against Pittsburgh in Doak Campbell Stadium, noon on Saturday. Florida State looking for their first ACC win of the season. Pittsburgh looking to solidify their new starting quarterback as the freshman phenom, as they are referring to him, to see if he's for real or if they're back to the drawing board. But it should be a interesting matchup for both teams, looking to one looking to get in the win column and one looking to stay hot and continue their winning ACC season for Pittsburgh. So yeah, both teams have a lot to play for, and we have a lot to talk about tonight. So stick around, let us know, comments, like the stream, subscribe if you can. It means a lot to us. Helps us get out there more. And yeah, let us know comments as we're discussing. If you agree, disagree, we'll put them up there as we have time to. But before we get in there and start discussing this, how's it going, old man? Anything you'd like to discuss before we get started?
No, just been, staying busy. It's been raining consistently inconsistent. So you get a shower and it pours down for 10 minutes and it goes away. The sun pops out, then the rain comes again. So it's kind of hard to plan anything outside. Actually, it was raining. I went out and took my pressure washer and pressure washed my landscaping wall because I was going to get wet anyways. It was perfect for that. But no, it's been just busy, like everybody else in their lives. We're glad everybody's in here and take a few minutes. And if you can't, catch us on record and you can play it like a podcast. And, and when you're driving to work or going someplace, you can listen to us as well. But no, everything's good. A lot going on in college football, what I call semi-pro football, and certainly a lot going on for Florida State. I'm looking forward to getting into it. I got tons of notes here. Look at them all. I got tons of data here. So we're looking forward to getting into it and getting people's comments in here. And Dagby was the first one in the queue. Jalen, you got nosed out. Now, she got, Jalen's right in at 740. Dagby got in at 705. I don't know if she came and went or whatever. He came and went. Mike's in there at 740. We got a tie between Jalen and Mike, and a Dagby came in at 704. So you guys are probably seeing she cheated coming in. So it's all good. We're all here at the same time. And Mike Merrick always brings that positive spin. Always brings a positive spin. Jalen, welcome to the show. We're glad that you guys are always here. We appreciate all you guys. And I got to get a Dagby up here. Where's the Dagby? There you go. Okay, super. We're glad everybody's here. KB, let's kick it off, man. Let's get going.
Yep. Obviously, I want to start with some injury news and some depth chart updates before we get into the game, because obviously these will count. So obviously, as many of you obviously know by now, or maybe not, Kadarius Jones, is going to be out for the rest of the season. So
True.
That's a hit to your secondary. So yeah, he is out with that injury. Other updates is that Amari Williams is now listed as a backup tight end and defensive end. So he's the secondary backup to both those positions.
That drives me crazy.
So
it drives me crazy.
He's listed as an or behind Randy Pittman with Marquise Douglas and Landon Thomas. And then at the defensive end position, he's listed as an or next to Jason Jenkins behind Dante McCray, who is the starter. And then the last kind of update on the main depth chart changes is that Shamar Arnois, the freshman, true freshman, is now listed as the co-starter with Edwin Joseph in the safety position. So that'll be interesting how things shake up there. Edwin Joseph hasn't been spectacular this year. He's had his moments, as all players had their moments on this team. But Shamar played a little bit on Saturday against Miami. It'll be interesting to see how much time he gets, because looking at his snap count and how much he's played as a true freshman, it hasn't obviously been too much. I think I was just trying to look up. He's played 43 snaps this season. So him being listed as a starter now shows you, and we knew there would be hopefully some changes after the Miami and the UVA loss to shake things up or to get things going. But he being listed as a co-starter tells you that maybe they do want to experiment with some things. And you look at some of his grades from last Saturday, and he did all right when he was on the field. You can see some of the player grades up here right now. His tackling grade he graded out pretty well. His coverage grade was decent. Run defense is something he has to work on, but he only played 13 total snaps in that Miami game. So like I said in the post game show, or in our recap show on Monday, I'm open to getting more of these true freshmen and experimenting with guys, rotating guys, seeing what they have in live game action, because things aren't working defensively. Totally. Things aren't working. Give guys the opportunity to make plays. Give some of these freshmen you brought in the ability to make plays and see what they got, and see them in live action versus just practice. So I'm up for it. Hopefully he balls out. Same with Amari Williams. I think when he's in defensive end wise, he's made some plays in very limited action. And I'd love to see him be able to go in and do something, because we're not seeing it from guys like James Williams right now consistently. We need edge guys who can make plays, contain, get to the quarterback, cause pressure, but also finish that pressure, because I think Darrell Jackson is playing very well, but he's getting double and triple teamed, and he can only do so much with that. If he's getting double or triple teamed, that means guys are getting single coverage, and they got to beat that single coverage and be able to cause chaos and get to the quarterback. And so it's going to come down to that. So with those updated to the changes to the depth chart, let's get into the matchup with Pittsburgh. Old man, like you said, you have a lot of notes, and so I'm going to be your sport guy and add on to your analysis. So where do you want to start?
Well, let me start, since you already started with the availability, your injury report. And has the official ACC availability, did that come out today? I think it comes out tomorrow.
I think they do a Thursday report and then a final Friday report.
Yeah, and a final one. So, but I listened to the media presser today with Mike Norvell, which I think is his last one for the week. Usually does it Wednesday. He doesn't do anything on Thursday because they're really getting into game prep. So I'm just going to give you a few remarks that came out of there. Not a lot of significance that I saw, but he did say the intensity this week has been good. That despite the disappointment of the last couple of weeks, and including the Miami loss, the intensity of practices has been good, and the mentality of the players has been also very good in his opinion. He said the focus is this week. We're not focused on any other weeks. We're not focused on the rest of the season. We're focused on this week, 1 week at a time. I thought that's probably a good approach to take, and I think that's what they've been trying to do. So I don't think that's anything new, but that's the focus. And he expects a very competitive game coming up from Pittsburgh, and we're going to get into those, why it's going to be competitive here soon. So stand by. He said Pitt has a very good run pressures, that they're pretty good at tackles for losses. So they're going to come after the quarterback. They're going to come after Castellanos, and they're going to test our line. Now, I think that gets down to Pettis. I think Micah Pettis, he is probably going to come out as questionable. Norvell didn't say he was out, but he did hesitate a lot talking about him. So I expect he could be very questionable or on limited reps, and I expect to see Rizzi probably in there unless they go with a young guy. So they're going to have to shuffle around just a little bit. So that I think was significant because anytime our starting linemen go down, it's a problem.
So they still had, just for reference, on the depth chart, which take it with a grain of salt, Micah Pettis still listed as the starter, and then Adrian Medley behind him, which we've already talked about in depth how bad Adrian Medley played, but that's how it's still listed on depth chart as of this week.
Right. You know what? But yeah, and yeah, on the grades we get from PFF, these aren't official Seminole grades. You never see those. Medley had a rough game against Miami. So it'll be interesting to see how that Pitt defense attacks them and what we can get going there. A wide receiver, LaWayne McCoy. Mike Norvell talked very positively about him. He's really developing. He had some injuries there. He's come back off those injuries, and he's really growing, and there are big expectations for him. He seems to be the number 3 receiver on this team when they have to go. Yeah, him and Boggs.
He's listed over Boggs this week, which is another update I forgot to mention. He is listed as the main slot receiver over Boggs now.
Okay. So you look for LaWayne McCoy and Boggs, Squirrel White, and Deuce to get most of the catches, maybe, and Randy Pittman, obviously. Norvell said very outstanding remarks about the freshman quarterback that Pitt has, that he's an impressive kid who came out of basically nowhere, and I'll talk more about him later. He likes his kid, and he thinks this kid can do damage against football teams. So we'll see how that is. He applauded loudly for Randy Pittman. Big asset on offense, can do almost anything, can throw a little pass if you need him to. He's a hard blocker, catches the ball very well, smart, physical player. He talked about Pittsburgh's Desmond Reed. That's their leading running back. He does the most damage, but he has been injured. He's been suiting up and going through limited reps. They expect to see him in this game on Saturday. Probably not as many reps as he normally would get, but he is going to be in this ball game, so we need to keep an eye on him. Ashlyn Barker is a game time decision, so we'll be looking to see how he shows up on the list. I talked about Pettis and Rizzi. He said Rizzi has a lot of versatility, so I expect to see Rizzi in the game. And he said the most important thing is we've got to disrupt this young quarterback. He'll be making his second start, his first start here on the road in a very hostile Knoll Nation at Doak Campbell Stadium on Saturday. But they need to get after this kid, he said. So that was Mike's main presser. Any questions on that, KB?
Nope, no questions there.
Okay, let me roll into what I see for Pitt, and I've gone across Pitt media. I've looked at different things on the media about Pitt, and let's talk about them just for a minute. Now, Pitt right now, the game's going to be on 12 o'clock noon. Does it make a difference? Pitt's played most of their games at 12 o'clock noon. Not what I think football players like to play at that time. I don't think they do. I don't think young people like to get up early. I think it can be a little sluggish, but they're used to playing at noon too. So that's one thing I think is interesting to keep an eye out on. Pitt is 3-2 coming into the game. FSU is 3-2 coming into the game. We're 0-2 in the conference. They're 1-1 in the conference. Okay, so they and people say, well, who have they beaten? Who has Pitt beaten? They've played Duquesne. They beat them 61-9. That's a cream puff game. They've played Central Michigan. That's a step up, a little bit of a step up. Okay, they beat Central Michigan 45-17. Then they lost to West Virginia. Okay, that's the first Power 4, Power 5 team, whatever you want to call it. They lost to them by a touchdown, 31-24. All right. Then they came back, played Louisville, a ACC conference game, and lost by 7 points, 34-27.
Collapsed in that game. They were up 17-0.
And they should have won the game. They got
they collapsed.
They collapsed.
There's no should-haves.
and their coach was very upset. He's a veteran coach. He's been at Pitt for a long time, and that's Pat Narduzzi. He's a good coach. This guy knows what he's doing. He's been in the arena and the rodeo before. At this point, they were upset with their quarterback play. They were upset with their quarterback play. And that's when they decided to change quarterbacks. And they've decided to go with their quarterback, true freshman, Mason Heineshell. And Mason Heineshell, a three-star kid who didn't go to many camps in high school. He was at a high school and hadn't won a state championship in like 30-some years. He led them to the state championship. He had huge numbers in the passing at his high school. I think it was Clay County or Clay High School. And he put on quite a performance. He got one D1 offer, and that was the University of Pittsburgh. And when he got it, he said, I'm in. Michigan tried to get into the recruiting game very late, okay, because he's got decent measurables for a quarterback. He's not what I would call a Castellanos type guy where he's trying to run all the time. He's more of a prototypical, and I watched some film on him, KB. He's more of a prototypical drop back guy. He reminds me of that old style FSU quarterback, that Chris Winkie, who kind of drops back and doesn't try to run much. But if forced by the defense to run, or he sees opening to get 5-6 yards, he's going to take it, and his legs are good enough to get him there. All right. Mm-hmm. From the film that I saw, and I'm sure Florida State is not only looking at the Boston College game, but they're also looking at high school tapes as well of how this kid conducts himself. But they believe, when they made the change, that he is the future for this program, and they want to get him wet quickly. Now, is this challenge against Florida State too much for a young kid? Well, what Florida State can do about that on defense is rattle the young kid, see how he handles it, to put a lot of pressure on him up front. We'll talk more about that as we get into some defensive stuff. But clearly, can the offensive line, which has some problems, the Pitt offensive line is shaken up a little bit as well. They've got some injuries there. They've got a couple of their starters that are injured and nicked up. Whether they're going to play or not is up in the air. So they may have some second-tier guys playing on the offensive line. I believe, KB, it could be, I don't want to say a field day, but I think our defensive line may have one of their better days against this Pitt defense, okay, if our Noles defense shows up. If James Williams is going to show up on the edge, this is the game I suspect that he might be able to do that. I think that's a big key to see how he does in this game. So once they beat BC 48-7, BC is not Florida State. BC's got some big problems. I don't think they like their coach there, Bill O'Brien. That's why Castellanos left. He hasn't done that much there.
They're a disaster.
And I think this rookie quarterback, I think he got ACC Rookie of the Week. I could be wrong on that. He did. Okay, but he has replaced the quarterback they started the season with, which was Eli Holstein. Now, Eli Holstein has played a lot of ball too. I think he's got over 1,000 yards, but he was turning the ball over. That's why they did over the last couple of weeks. He's turned the ball over, not prior to the BC game. And they were upset with that. The coaching staff was upset with that. And the head coach, Narduzzi, was upset with that. So they put Holstein on the bench and are going with Mason Heineshell. So given that, this could be a very interesting game just to watch their quarterback and how he performs. Now, against BC, let me see here. He put up 323 yards passing, no interceptions, no fumbles, 0 turnovers. He rushed for 28 yards, which tells you they don't have a lot of program rushes for him in their offense. He'll run if he's pressured, and he was 30 of 41, which is highly efficient. He does dump the ball off to running backs. Okay, he'll check it down, but they also have some wheel routes in there for those running backs that our linebackers are going to have to keep an eye on in that regard as well. But right now, they do have some injuries too. The big questions are mainly on the defense of Pittsburgh. Cruz Brookins, he's out with a shoulder. He could play. He could be questionable for this game. Blaine Spires and Zach Carruthers, two other guys on that defense that they rely on, are probably going to be questionable. There is a big lack of depth on their defensive front. Okay, so we might be able to take advantage of that with the Gus Malzahn rush offense, and I suspect and hope we'll have at least 150 to 180 rush yards against their defense. Okay, so I'll give you a minute to digest that and get your thoughts on those.
Yeah, I don't feel as confident about the ability to rush. I don't know why you feel I mean, Pittsburgh is giving up 66 yards of rushing per game so far this season. I know they played a couple of cupcakes, but if you look at the Louisville game, if you look at the BC game, they effectively shut down both those teams' rushing attack. I mean, Louisville only had 53 rushing yards on 34 rushing attempts. That's 1.6 yards per rush. They destroyed them in the rushing attack. They lost that game. Pittsburgh lost that game, but they took the rushing attack out of that. And now,
so if they gave up a few yards like that, where are they vulnerable? Are you saying they're vulnerable in the secondary?
I think what happened is that, and what I've analyzed and what I've read and what I've seen is that, one, they're sloppy, and the turnovers you talked about. They had 5 turnovers in that game. Some were fumbles, some were interceptions, and they were sloppy with the football. The other thing is that before, and a lot of this changes is because a new quarterback can change the identity of a football team. But a lot of their offense was very explosive because Pittsburgh is not a great running team either. They are one of the worst running teams in the country.
That's true.
And also the worst running teams in the ACC. They're only averaging, less than 115 yards per game, which is, I think, bottom third in the ACC.
And let me give you a quick comment on that. You're exactly right. I looked at their grades. And I have in my notes here. In the BC game, their lowest grades in the entire team in the BC game was run blocking. Okay. Yeah. In run block, they're like 60.2, and in the but on defense, on pass, and on their defense, pass rush hurries, okay, on defense, they were low in that on 60.0. So I felt that potentially we're going to be able, I would be shocked if we don't get 150 to 180 yards on the rush game, given that we can do a lot of play action. But I see your point.
I forget what I was saying. But basically what I was saying is that what it was up until the quarterback switch, and it's still a little bit like that, but it's an offense based on explosion and executing on explosive plays. Because they have no rushing attack, they don't really control the clock effectively. And so if they don't get an explosive play or score in 3 or 4 minutes, and you can stifle them, then they don't control the clock. They get off the field. It's either boom or bust with them. And so if you're able to put in sustained drives, and score on those drives, you not only wear down their defense, which then pays off down the line in the third or fourth quarter, but also it keeps you in the game. So you get three or 7 points on the board, a couple of drives here, you punt, But if you're able to put a 7 to 8 yard, minute drive on the board, and you kind of saw that in the Louisville game where they didn't cash in on all their drives, but they put 8-minute drives together, wore that defense down. They rushed 35 times. Now those drives, those run yards, it wasn't a lot, but it wore down. It wears down bodies. It wears down the defensive line.
And they don't have a lot of depth there.
Yeah, exactly. And so going into that third or fourth quarter, that's where Louisville was able to exploit them and put up 14 points in the fourth quarter, and outscore them 17-0 in the second half. and win that football game, because they had 20 more minutes of time possession against Pittsburgh, because they were able to put sustained drives together, wear them down, and come in the second half, and then especially in the fourth quarter, it was a game of attrition essentially. And so that, with the penalties, and that with just basically controlling the ground and controlling the pace of the game, that's how Florida State can win this game. And Pittsburgh, I think, is one of the worst teams too at self-inflicted penalties. And now Florida State hasn't been, it has been pretty good, but they do it at the worst times. But if you look back at Pittsburgh's history and their games that they've lost too, they've had some bad penalties, and they've had numerous times. They had a couple of games where they've had 100 yards plus penalty yardage, and that can hurt them, and somehow they've overcome that. But they're not only sloppy, they have bad penalties, and if you add that up with a terrible rushing attack, that can lead to them being beatable. Now, you throw a new quarterback into the mix, and looking at him and what he brings is that the two quarterbacks ahead of him, like you said, were very turnover prone. And when you have
they're not injured; they're just sitting on the bench. So if he flounders, they could bring either one of those.
Well, they
guys
tried
in.
out. They tried out Cole Gonzalez, who's a secondary. He threw an interception, and that's why they're in the place that
lost
they are
the
right
game.
now.
Yeah.
And that's where because they've tried the first two options and it didn't go anywhere, and now they're down to the third option. And he showed out last week. Now, like you said, is that a combination of BC being a trash program? Probably. And him just having talent, probably that too. But what he brought, if you look at the play drive, and the stats are distilling that, because when you look at rushing stats, they put sack yardage into that. But if you look at his true rushing yards, I believe he had over 40 plus yards of true rushing yardage. We don't.
Yeah, they do. Sack yards go against the quarterback. Yeah.
So that's something that Florida State and we will have to take into consideration looking at this quarterback, because if you look at the drive history, many of the drives first down. And it wasn't rushing. It wasn't necessarily a dedicated rushing play. It was his scramble ability. I think he had over 11 scramble plays of 5+ yards. And that was him, because the offensive line, like you said, there was pressure on the quarterback, but he was able to break the pressure and get 5 yards on it. And that is something
their pass blocking is horrendous.
It is. But I think this is something that he brings that maybe Eli didn't as much. The ability to scramble out and extend the play and get that extra 5 yards. He had 2 or 3 broken tackles for those plays, and that was big to beating BC. And now BC's offense isn't in a place where they can come back and score consistently, so that also leads to a blowout. But this is something that Florida State is going to have to take into account, because a young quarterback, and I think too, a young quarterback does sometimes get happy feet, especially a quarterback, obviously, that hasn't had a lot of snaps, true freshman. They're going to tend to have happy feet, and I think that leads into that style of play. But if you look at his passing chart, most of his passing was between 0 and 10 yards, 0 and 20, less than 20 yards, and most of them was behind, within the 10-yard scrimmage, the first down marker. I think 20 plus or 25 of his passes were all within that 0 to 10 mark. And so he's going to look to deep dump it underneath and dump it around the line of scrimmage. They may do that, like you said, dump it out to the running backs like Miami did last week. It's an extension of the running game, right? If you can't hand it off traditionally, they're going to look for the guys on the edges to try to exploit your defensive backs one-on-one, because that's become sort of the playbook against Florida State at this point. Our guys, the last couple of games, have not been able to step up and make a one-on-one tackle or get off a block on the edge and get a guy down the next. And once they make contact, they can't get the guy down in the open space, and it becomes a 25-30 explosive play. Five plays of 40+ yards last week against Miami. All those plays, most of those plays were preventable if a guy makes a tackle or gets off a block, right? And no offense to Pittsburgh, but they don't have a guy like Tooney on their team that I'm aware of, right? So all these plays should be able to be kept in front of them, and if you step up and make a play, it should be 1 or 2 yards right in front of you or around.
Yeah, their best receiver is a guy named Johnson. He's number 2 on your roster, and Kenny Johnson, was nine of for 115 yards against BC, 12.8 average, 1 touchdown.
He was the primary.
And he seems to be their number 1 guy they're going to be looking at. But I think you said something very important is, if I'm the quarterback coach for Pittsburgh, I'm telling this young quarterback, we're going to be, for a couple of reasons. We expect them to have a better pass rush on you. Okay, we expect that. We're expecting that. You got to get rid of the ball a little bit sooner, which he seems to be able to do. He's able to hit those 10, 15-yard passes, 10 to 12 to 15-yard passes. And if they're going to give us that, we're going to take that. And if Pittsburgh feels we've, like any football team, there's no football team that goes into a game that I'm aware of besides the run and shoot type offense. We're going to try to establish some running game, at least some running game, so we can have them respect play action. This kid is, like I said, is looking not to run like a Castellanos. He's looking to, to make high efficient passes. And so far, he did it in high school. He did it against BC, but to play Florida State is a different animal.
Yeah. And with that point, I think we want to make him have to use his leg and make him kind of become head down. Make him think there's always pressure around him, and that because that's what you can do with a young quarterback. Make him not be looking downfield. Make him always be looking to think there's a ghost around this corner about to tackle him. That's what they have to make him become. Kind of like Ty Simpson in the week 1 game, where he always was feeling the pressure and not looking downfield anymore. And that leads to a long pass or a short pass. And that like you said, that's what Florida State has to bring in the defensive end. Not let him get comfortable, make his eyes go down versus up, and make him feel that pressure.
Well, I think the quarterback coach at Pitt, in fact, I saw the coach kind of, I don't want to say call the quarterback coach out at Pitt, but he kind of called his own coach out and said, we got to get better at the quarterback coaching. We got to get better, at this and that. But he kind of called him out, that, and that's when they made the switch over. But it was like, I think he would be telling this kid, listen, we're going to try to keep this as simplified as possible for you. And maybe make 2 reads instead of 5 reads. You're going to make 2 reads, maybe a 3rd read, or we're going to have you a check off where you can dump it down. I'd want to make it as simple as I could for this kid. All right. And I think it's going to be fascinating to watch this kid. Who knows? This guy could develop into a great quarterback. He's getting his chance here at Doak Campbell Stadium in front of a riled up crowd. I expect a big crowd there. And when I saw him on film, he can air it out a little bit. I didn't see him throwing too many long balls. I don't expect a lot of long balls. They may do it to stretch the field to test us a little bit, like you said, one-on-one. If they see the one-on-ones, they may test that.
Yeah, he's only thrown 3 balls, 20 yards or plus, and he's only connected on 1 of them. So I wouldn't expect a ton of deep balls. And Florida State shouldn't give them the time to go deep. That should be the goal. One thing, though, it's up to the defensive line in this defense is to not allow the run game to get going. Like we talked about, this is one of the worst run offenses in the ACC. But last week against BC, and once again, this is either a testament to BC or this is a revamped offense because they had a new kid running last week, a freshman as well, and Jakarian Turner, a kid out of Florida. So he's going to maybe have a chip on his shoulder, a kid from Wildwood, Florida.
Right.
Wanting
Wildwood,
to make a statement.
that's right near where I am, brother. Yeah, Wildwood High School.
He's a smaller back, 5'9", shifty.
Yeah.
Gonna want to show himself, but he got a career high. For him, obviously he's a freshman. He had a career high tackles last week and made the most of it. And they ran, I think, for a season high last week for 138 yards.
And their receivers
50 yards.
Yeah, their receivers aren't that big, that I see.
But it's up to Florida State to quickly establish that you are not going to run and you are going to be forced to pass against us. They cannot let it be like the UVA game where guys are getting 4 or 5 yards moving the box. And then similar, you cannot let it be like Miami where they get 4 or 5 yard chunks. And now Miami didn't run for a lot, but they use that pass game as an extension sideline by sideline. But you cannot let BC or let Pitt do it like they did against BC and establish a routine running game, which then opened up the pass game for the freshmen. So you set the tone early. You're not going to get your run game going. You're going to have to drop back, sit in the pocket, and pass like a real quarterback. And then you send the pressure. Let the defensive ends, let the defensive tackles do what they do best and collapse that pocket around him and force him to scramble, force him to use his legs to get the first downs. It's so important to set that tone early and do not let them get a run game going and bail out this quarterback.
Yeah, I hope also now we're sitting at 0. No, I'm sorry. we're sitting at -3 on turnovers for the season.
So are they.
Total
too.
team.
So are they.
Team. Yeah. So I hope we can get back closer to 0 at the end of this game by getting 2 or 3 turnovers of any variety, because when you start stacking up minus on turnovers for the season, it starts to reflect how many games you win or lose. It truly, truly does. And so that's a problem. And hopefully we can improve on that. But you can't have a guy one-on-one trying to knock the ball out and only using one arm to tackle and a guy break away from you. You do that when you have gang tackling. That's when you start smoking the ball, or you put the helmet on the ball. But you've also, your first responsibility is make the tackle.
Yeah. If you can't, like we've talked about with Earl Little, you can't just tackle with your shoulder, man. You got to wrap up. Your tackling's been pretty atrocious last 2 weeks. You're missing. We know you can hit hard. We need you to wrap. We need everyone to wrap up, get the guy down at the point of contact, and we also need guys behind you to support you. And we need, like you said, group
run
tackling.
To the ball. Run to the ball.
We
run
need to
to
get
the
back
whistle.
and they've said that in the press conferences. We need to get back to basics. We need to get back to basics and to the fundamentals, because people, like you said, are in the wrong spots. The right plays are being called, but people are in the wrong spots by a couple of yards, and that leads to open gaps in the defense. And I think, like they've talked about, getting back to basics and getting back to keeping it simple with this defense and letting people do their jobs the right way. So I hope that they do that. Now, on the flip side, talking about the offense for Florida State, and you've talked about the ability to run, I don't think it's going to be that easy for Florida State to establish the run.
I'll be surprised. What yardage would you be happy with, given you're thinking it's going to be hard? What would you be happy with?
Happy and realistic is two different things. I mean, I'd be happy if we got 150, 175 plus yards, because this is a team, like I said,
I think they'll get that. I think they'll get that.
But like I said, this is a team that's only giving up like 65 yards per game rushing. So that would be double what their average giving up as a defense. This is a very good defensive line, a defensive unit. They play extremely good. Their
I
linebackers.
think they have some injuries, KB, that I listed.
Who's
talked
out?
about
Who's out?
Before. Well, I just said that. I said, let me see where my note is here. Hang on. Oh, here. You got guys that are going to be on the questionable list. You got Cruz Brookins. He's one of their studs. Blaine Spires. Okay, and this came from the Pitt media.
Okay.
And Zach Carruthers. And they said that there's lack of depth is a huge problem on the defensive side, and so that could slow their defense.
So I agree with you a little bit there, but they got the core linebackers. Biles is one of the top in the ACC, and that's the guy I was looking at before, and he's healthy. Rasheem Biles is a stud.
Yeah.
And he's one of the best tacklers on their team. He's got 3 sacks in the season, 3 quarterback hurries, 2 hits. He's a menace. Cruz Brookins is very good, like you said, but he's not a big pressure in the backfield guy. He's more of your typical safety. He's a safety.
Here's
him
a guy
deep
from
will
Pitt
be a missing guy.
Yeah, right here. Here's a WRW Pitt. Pitt's strength is stopping the run. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, Brookins is the key in the secondary. Brookins is the key, which I was just saying. Like you said,
Rasheem Biles. Yeah.
But Rasheem Biles is a guy that can stop the rush, is a guy that gets to the quarterback, and that's the guy that scares me. Okay. Rasheem Biles is the guy that scares me the most, and if he's healthy, same with you said Blaine Spires is out. That's a guy.
I didn't say it was out. Okay. I said it's questionable.
If Blaine Spires is out, that would be a hurt for them, because he's got 7 hurries on the season. He's got 2 sacks, a hit.
And Zach Carruthers. Yeah.
And Zach Carruthers is another guy. But
I think they're going to try to play. I really believe they'll come out as questionable, which means they'll probably be in the game. They'll see how they do and go from there.
No, but this is a defense that, with those guys being out, it does hurt them, but they still have some studs on their core. And from linebackers to defensive line, they're going to put up a very similar fight to what Miami gave us. We're going to have to earn yardage. It's not going to be all explosive plays, but But this Florida State team, regardless of who's on the field, they have to find a way to sustain drives and put the ball in the damn end zone. I don't care who you're playing because they have the offensive ability to do that. Now, that dramatically changes if Micah Pettis doesn't play. That job gets a whole lot harder if Micah Pettis isn't in the game. And so it's going to be it'll be interesting to see how Gus Malzahn tailors this offense away from how he adjusts that line to say, do we not go to that side of the field anymore? Or how does Pittsburgh, if they see Micah Pettis is out, how do they adjust their scheme to overplay that side of the field? So it'll be
I think they'll look
match.
for the weakness. They'll look for the guy that's the non-starter who's been slotted in there. I got the feeling that Pettis may be banged up a little bit more than Norvell wanted to put on, and I expect he'd come out on the list as questionable to not available. I really do.
But overall, I think we don't want to get. It'll be important to everyone's point. It'll be critical that Florida State gets a run game going, consistent run game going, unlike what they really did with Miami for 4 quarters. Because if Castellanos is forced again to sit back and pass traditionally, I think he's in the world of trouble. Because I do think from linebackers, and I don't think Pittsburgh has the most elite coverage guys, but they have Cruz Bookings is a very, very good player if playing. But I think they have very good linebackers. They can establish pressure from the edge, and then they have decent defensive backs. I would feel, and they generate takeaways, some critical takeaways in some games. I would be very scared if he has to sit back there and pass consistently. So, to win this game, they will need to get 140, 100-plus yards rushing again. They will need to get the ground game going, unlike they did against Miami, and they will need to get 2+ explosive plays. They will need to get those 40-yard chunks like they did all season up to the Miami game, because you can't go an entire. This offense is built around explosion, and so they will need to get those explosive plays back. Whether it's long, a trick play that leads to a Deuce Robinson, 40-yard pass down the field. They need some of that explosion back in this offense. They need to find a way to generate it, and whether that's through some of the misdirection with Malzahn or what, I don't care. They need to find a way to get that back.
Well, I agree with much of what you said. I will be, and I'm not trying to underestimate. I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a competitive game. The spread right now is anywhere between 9.5, 10.5 to FSU's favor, of course, being a home game, and they're thinking FSU should take this game. The over and under is 58.5 points. The prediction matchup from ESPN says FSU should win with a 77% chance of winning.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's going to be a competitive game. If we can get the offense rolling, and with a few explosive plays, as you said, and some long drives, moving the chains, and then getting 7 points to wear down their defense, I think they lack depth on the offensive line and the defensive line, and I think that's where you can try to really overwhelm them. I think our backups probably on the defensive line, our rotation is probably better than theirs would be, but we do have problems on our offensive line. Okay, and I think you're going to see a lot of Rizzi in the game, and maybe other offensive linemen, whoever's next up in the order. And hopefully none of the other starters will go down in this game, but there's no given on that, obviously. Yeah. Tommy is going to run. He's going to be pressured to run at times, and he's good at that. At that. And he's going to have designated runs. I don't like the designated runs too much. Why? Because he gets plenty of runs under pressure. Let those be his runs. Yeah. If you and I are the defensive coaches for Pittsburgh, we've always said the whole season, we're going to try to shut down FSU's run, limit it, and make him throw the ball against us. Make him throw the ball. I suspect that's the same plan Pittsburgh is going to have going in. Yep. And it's going to take, how many players is it going to take to put in the box to shut down Gus Malzahn's rush offense? How many is it going to take? Is it going to take 5? Is it going to take 6? One of the Mr. Pittsburgh here, who's on the net, he was saying that they place their cornerbacks a lot out on an island. Well, I hope they do against Deuce. I hope they do against McCoy.
But the reason they can do that is because they generate pressure. And so
Pressure.
they're
You
willing
have
to
to.
give up. They're
You
willing
have
to
to.
do that trade-off
Yes.
because they
Yes.
trusting their defensive line, their linebackers can generate pressure and allow
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, here
And that's
again,
up to that's the battle. You said the lines. So can the
Yeah,
offensive line
right.
give our quarterback the time to sit back there and allow the routes to open up downfield? And last week, and that's why I'm scared, because in the Miami game, it was free rush. I mean, what did we talk about? Who had the 2.0 grade pass blocking last week against Miami?
Right.
That's what scares me, is we saw free rush after free rush after free
Yeah.
rush. And I
Yeah.
know we were playing against Ruben Bain and his buddy on the other side. But I don't think the step down with some of these, I mean, that's what scares me, is they could send Rasheem Biles or Zach Crothers, and those guys can. I don't know if we're going to be.
Well,
I don't think they're going to be able to come off the block every single time, but we just got to be able to account from them. And it's going to take this offensive line and chip blocks and the running backs to be able to pick those guys up efficiently. And it's scary. I'm just having PTSD from last week when I just saw Tommy under pressure consistently. And he's going to, too, for him, he's not going to have to, he can't have happy feet again. Because last week, early in that game, he did get happy feet. He was seeing ghosts for a little while, and he took accountability for that. And he put the game a little bit on himself. And he said, I take it, because he was, and even the announcers, and I was listening to the Jimbo Fisher ACC Huddle broadcast, and he even said, Tommy's forcing stuff. He's forcing stuff with his feet. He had his head down in the first half because he was feeling the pressure consistently, which I don't blame him for. But he can't feel that. If he gets sacked one or two times, he's got to trust his offensive line and the adjustments they make, that they're going to be able to pick up some of those blitzes or that pressure so that he can look downfield and attack those guys on the island. Because I believe Deuce Robinson, and who my X factor is Micah Danzy, is going to be able to make big catches. Micah Danzy has to be involved in this game deep in the field. I'm over scroll right. I'm not writing him off, but I've seen enough of Micah Danzy that he needs to be involved in the deep game, in the mid-range game, not just as his end around, toss it to him. The guy can catch. The guy can run a route. The guy has hands. Get him involved deep in the field, mid-range field. Pass him the damn ball. The guy can catch. The guy can juke a guy. The guy can break tackles. He needs to be the complement to Deuce Robinson. Put them on opposite ends of the field and let them make plays. Let's see who they want to guard, and let's see them jump up and high point the ball. That is my X factor for the game, is Micah Danzy. Get him involved in the damn game this week.
Yeah, I think that's a real good game plan. I mean, if they want to go man on man, press man coverage, or back off, give them 10 yards, right? To give Deuce on one side, Danzy on the other, right? And I guess we're saying Danzy's your number 2 receiver, number 3 receiver.
For me,
he's
overall for me, he's number 2.
Yeah,
I just think he has the most.
I agree with you. And both of those guys can stretch the field.
Yep.
So if you're going to go one-on-one with them, you have a good chance of them coming down with the football, right? If you throw it out into the area, and or getting an interference call.
Yeah. Exactly.
One or the other. So,
Exactly.
And they can fight the guy for the football. I'm not so scared that the guy's going to pick it off unless it's well underthrown or something.
Yeah.
It will be interesting to see how they play that. I'm not sure Pitt's defense is just going to go one-on-one with Deuce Robinson the whole game or on Danzy. I'm not sure they respect Danzy yet as a receiver, Pittsburgh-wise. They respect him as a gadget guy, as a end-around guy, something of that nature. What I haven't seen, and maybe I've missed it, maybe I've just missed it, I don't see too many pass patterns across the middle of the field. Some of that may be because you have a really short quarterback. Tommy Castellanos is a pretty short guy. He's like 5'9", maybe 5'10", and that's probably a stretch. So it's harder for him to throw over the top of everybody coming into his face. That's hard to do. But I would like to see Randy Pittman grab a few more balls. Landon Thomas, what's the story on Landon Thomas? Do you have any clue?
He's not playing much. That's the story.
He's is he the
he's
number
listed as
2
the
guy
backup. He's listed as the second backup with Amari Williams and
Wow.
Marquise and
I would like to see our tight ends grab a few more balls. We know they don't throw at Biscuit. He hasn't, I don't think he's been targeted once. He's a blocker. I get that. But he used to be able to catch the ball a little bit. You can also open up those linebackers by hitting your tight ends with 5, 7, 10-yard passes. I'd like to see a little bit of more. Well, I know it's the Gus Bells on offense. They don't do that. Well, maybe just throw in a little notch here or then, to help these guys. I think we know Tommy is not that accurate long range. We just know he isn't. He's more of a short to middle range guy who has very good feet. His DNA is as a runner. And when your DNA is that way, you want to run more than you want to pass because you think you can get more yards. I just hope when he does run, he gets the hell out of bounds or he gets down because he could easily be hurt on any play when he runs.
Yeah, I would say he can hit the deep ball. It's just the consistency. That's just who he is. Yeah.
Consistency. I don't think
but he's capable.
Consistent on the deep ball.
Yeah, he's capable of it. It's just.
But
when you have weapons, like you do, it's willing to, But that's the thing. You don't want him rolling out and having to heave it up like he did a couple of times against Miami, where it's not the ideal situation to pass it. Get a clean pocket, launch it, and let Deuce Robinson or one of the big receivers try to make a play on. That's the ideal situation, not rolling out under pressure, throwing it up, and then it becomes a disaster. So it's up to this offensive line. It's up to the play calling to put him in the best situation so that he can make those throws with his ability. So I agree with you.
I think they
he had 16 carries against Miami.
Yeah,
that rushing carries, registered rushing carries. That was 16 of the 38 rushing carries. That's not going to win football games. He can't be our leading rusher.
No, I agree.
Rushing is part of this play calling. I understand that, but he can't be throwing 45 times and rushing 16 times. Like that much cannot be on him. That means he's doing too much, and we're not going to win the game. That means we're down too much, and the offense isn't working. If he's having to account for like 60 plus snaps himself, like that's too much.
If we're not able to get 150 rushing yards in this game, which absolutely sets up your play action and have some plays to stretch the field, which gets more of their guys out of the box, I'll be shocked.
I'll be a little shocked. It's total yards. I think it's yards per carry because we had 130 yards against Miami, but the yards per carry was 3.5. That just means we weren't able to get the chunk yardage we needed. So it's really, for me, it's can we get the 4.5? Can we get back to that, the 4.0, 4.5 yards per carry? And even if we get 125, 130, 140 yards, but it's that averages up, which means that Chroma or Sawchuck, they're getting every time they rush, it's 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5. Like we're getting into ideal second down situations, which against Miami, it wasn't like that. It was, 2nd and 9, 2nd and 8. And that changes your playbook too. That's really what I want to see is our average yards per rush like it was before with UVA in those games against Alabama, where it was 4.5 yards per rush, 5.0 yards per rush. That's really what I want to see improve this week. So.
Yeah, and one of the other things that I just remembered is earlier this week, I think it's B.J. Gibson left the team, and he did it with no hard feelings. He did it talking to the coaching staff. He is an elite baseball player, and he has decided that at this point he is going to commit more to the baseball side. Okay, so I think he's done for the rest of the season. He's not injured, but he discussed it with coaching staffs on both baseball and football, and he's going to get over onto the baseball side. And that reminds me of a kid that many, many years ago, his name was Kenny Felder. He came out of Niceville High School down in the panhandle of Florida, in Niceville, Florida, a place I lived. So I know the name well. He was, if you look back at Kenny Felder, he decided to play baseball at Florida State. And I think he left even early and signed a pro contract but he was one hell of an athlete at Niceville High School, probably one of the best athletes they've ever had there. And he left and went on to play baseball. The same thing happened to Chris Wenke. If you may not remember that story. Chris Wenke had signed a long. He was offered scholarship by Bobby Bowden. He was one of the top quarterbacks in the country, and Bobby Bowden had recruited him. And then he got an offer. He's an elite baseball player too. He got offered by the Toronto Blue Jays out of high school. He took that deal. He signed a signing bonus. I don't know. Back in those days, it was probably $250,000, whatever. He went off and tried to get to the major leagues, which he could not do after several seasons. Called up Bobby Bowden, said, "Can I come back and play quarterback?" Bobby Bowden said, "Come on down." The rest is history. Heisman and a national championship. It's weird. Life has weird journeys for everybody. But BJ Gibson, we wish you well. We'll be cheering you on the baseball fields. Now, back to Pittsburgh. Okay, let's
wrap it up. Let's wrap it up.
Let me wrap this up. Let me say this. Florida State's going to win this game. Okay? This is a critical game that must be won. Almost, I just think it's a turning point for this season as well. It's a conference game. We're already 0-2 in the conference. This is a winnable game. You've got a freshman quarterback who's shown some abilities to come into your house. And if you let a freshman quarterback on his second start beat you, okay, I think there's going to be a hell of a lot of questions. And it's going to really open up some questions about the future of Mike Novell going forward. I don't care how big his contracts are for a buyout. It could do that, and I feel very strongly about that. I would be very disappointed to lose this game. It'd be a tough one to call. This is a winnable game, certainly at home. It's not on the road, and I expect we'll win this game. Now, if it comes down to special teams, I think we'll be okay there. They do have a good special teams kicker, Trey Butkowski. I love that name, big Polish name. He's 10 of 11 on field goals. So they do kick a lot of field goals, okay? He gets a lot of attempts, but he looks pretty accurate in what he's doing. So we got to stay aware of that. You can't let these guys hang around, and then get beat on a walk-off field goal. That would be so depressing. I don't know what you could say to a team to bring them out of that type thing. But he is a true freshman. And our Jay Weinberg is freshman, sophomore. I don't know. He's a freshman too, right? Yeah. So I'm going to be very interested in this game. Very interesting. But Pitt is very interesting to see if this is the quarterback of the future for them.
Yep. Just to wrap up too, with special teams.
Well, I got my observation coming up, so don't run off.
All right. With Florida State too, just a reminder, it's homecoming for Deuce Spann. He's tied for 6th in receptions for Pitt. And you obviously have to be conscious that we haven't given up a kick return all year. I think we're the only team who hasn't given up a kick return yet. Most of ours go out of the end zone, which is great. But he can be dangerous in special teams. I think he had a kick return, at least one kick return for Florida State. So what he can do. The speed he brings. Just that's an.
Is he handling punts? He's not handling punts.
No, he's handling kicks, I believe.
Just kicks only. Okay.
I think Kenny Johnson does punts.
Well, we've kicked every ball. Jake Weinberg.
I just said this.
Yeah.
I said we haven't given up a single kick return yet. But it's something that you don't want to start giving up in this game because what a guy like him can do to you. So stay consistent, but special teams is something that could cost you. I think Pittsburgh has gotten a punt return TD this year. I may be wrong about that, but they have some athletes who can do it. So special teams, as you said, is critical in this game. I'm going to go with Florida State, must-win game, and I'm going to go with them for that reason. They have all the players to win this game. I don't think it'll be easy, but I think it'll be close. I think it'll be under the spread. I think it'll be maybe 7 to 10 points somewhere in there. I think it'll be close there.
Close game, man. Close game.
But something they have to win. I'm going to go that way. So that'll be the wrap up there. 12 noon Saturday in Doak. Be there, watch that. And with that, he's talked a lot tonight, but hopefully he'll keep it brief. We'll give him his 3 minutes observations around sports, and stick with us while he does
Where's
his
my
old
logo?
man,
Where's
old
there
man
it is?
observations. And
right.
his 3 minutes starts now.
Okay. Right
Go.
now. First, let me take a call on my special FSU
Jesus,
phone.
please.
Anybody seen one of these? Look at this thing. Okay, listen. I've got one observation tonight, not three. So I'm going to take the 3 minutes. Okay, and I'm already down to 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Here's the deal. There's a very, and I'm talking serious, very toxic environment in UNC. University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. You're in trouble. They're in trouble. There is so much talk going on. This is not just fan rumor. A lot of this is coming through well-recognized media that there are already discussions taking place for the ouster of Coach Bill Belichick. Okay? They're already 0-1 in the conference. Their overall record is 2-3. The 2 wins are against Cream Puffs, Charlotte and Richmond, and they've lost 2 straight. They've been blown out by inequality appointments. TCU blew them out, UCF blew them out, and Clemson blew them out this past week. I think they played them. Mm-hmm. The parents, here it is, the parents of current players, behind the scenes and some publicly without being named, are saying it should be sooner than later when Bill Belichick leaves the program. They're saying that there's too much emphasis on individualism and not enough on team play. And what they say as well is this situation is not helping. Okay? And we all know who that is. That's 25-year-old Jordan Hudson. That's right, 25 years old. And Bill is like 70-some years old. How can that not be a distraction? He probably thought, I can go down there and handle college ball. Well, guess what? Not so easy, my friend. Not so easy. Here's what one parent or set of parents have said. It's all starting at the top. This is their quote. And the boys are being affected. I don't fault the players. I fault the leadership that created this toxic environment. So don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if and when, and some of them are talking as soon as next week, prior to them playing Cal, that he could be out. I'll be watching that news. Now, there's a problem. 2 sons who coached with him with New England, and they had some bad years in his last couple of years at New England when Tom Brady left the program and went to Tampa Bay. His sons, Steve, who is the defensive coordinator, has been doing a horrific job, and Brian, who does defensive backs and safeties. He was honing them to take over this program. Well, you know what? I think all 3 will go. Does University of North Carolina have enough money in the bag? Will they make this very controversial move midway in the season so they can get a head start on the next season? Because they're saying a lot of guys will go into the portal and leave this program very quickly, at least the ones who can play. So that's my observation, KB. It's going to be fascinating to watch this.
It'll also be fascinating to find where North Carolina is going to come up with $50 million because he's guaranteed at least $30 million in his contract. So
supposedly he's willing to negotiate on that amount because of how crazy this has been there. This is a horrible idea. And anybody who thinks a man is going to come in at his age, concentrate on football when you've got this to go home to, wrong.
Or maybe they could have just looked at his last years without Tom Brady and could have said, oh, this may not work out. Why, the buzz doesn't work. Yeah, a horrible investment by UNC.
Do you see any way of Bill Belichick being ousted and one of his sons taking over the program? No,
fire
way.
them all. Fire them all.
Well, that's what I mean. Do you see any way that's even possible? That was his plan.
No. Yeah, his plan was probably to try to win 9 games this year, retire, and then give it to his son. 100%.
It's terrible. It is a terrible mess, and it's all over the media, certainly in college football, and certainly at the University of North Carolina. That's my observation for this week, KB.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you for all the comments. We appreciate all the likes, subscribes. Thank you all for everything. We hope you have a great Wednesday evening. If you're watching this later, a great whatever night it is for you. Come enjoy the game on Saturday. We'll be doing our post-game react on Saturday after the game around 4:30, or these games take like 5 hours. So hopefully
we come on, what, 10, 15 minutes after the game
I try to hop
ends.
on right afterwards. So, yeah, whenever.
Join us.
Usually 5 minutes right afterwards. Just hit the bell so you get the notification when we go live. So make sure you hit the bell. You'll see it when we go live.
And the phone lines will be open. The phone lines will be open during that post-game reaction.
Yep. So win or lose, bring your comments. We look forward to them. And we appreciate you guys being here. We hope this team bounces back. Everyone from the linebackers, defense, offense, we need them all, offensive line, everyone to contribute. And so thank you guys. Have a great week. We hope you wrap up your week in a strong way. And as always, go Noles. We'll see you soon. See you soon, guys.
Seminole sideline 365. Feel the roar, we're coming alive. Garnet and gold in the battle we thrive. This is our house where legends arrive. Every